Hello friends, we were discussing about heat treatment in steels, and we saw different type of microstructure which you can get by this heat treatment, and this is one type of treatment where you can have bulk transformation. So, austenite is transforming into ferrite or transforming into pearlite or transforming into martensite. There is another type of transformation where you get a new phase, but the phase which forms are the volume of that phase is very small, okay, and that is usually in form of precipitates. So, this is another type of kind of heat treatment where you have precipitates in the material, okay, and that is why we call it as precipitation. And this is very important in one class of material, okay. These are widely used material, okay, though this type of heat treatment will be important for large class of material. So, another class of material which is normally used in engineering application is aluminum alloys. So, aluminum alloys are strengthened by doing precipitation, by introducing precipitate in the material. So, we want to understand this type of heat treatment now, and we will take example of aluminum alloy only, and we will use aluminum copper alloys. Okay. Nowadays in fact aluminum has become a very what you call a very interesting material in the sense, and very fancy material, because nowadays in fact even phone companies are advertising that there are phones, for example in iPhone the body is made of aluminum, okay. So, it is something very, and it is all, these are all high strength aluminum alloys and so on, okay. So, it is not only a very boring engineering application, it can be advertised in this kind of fancy products also, okay. So, in aluminum alloy precipitation is one of the very important process to enhance the properties of the material. Okay, so basically if you look at an alloy which is more of aluminum and less of copper, this is a aluminum copper system which we are using as an example here. So, we are only considering the part of the phase diagram where you have aluminum rich alloys. So, it is aluminum 4% copper which we are using as an example here, okay. So, what is the process here is that I do a solutionizing. So, let us say I have developed the aluminum 4% copper, then I will take it to the solutionizing temperature. That means this is the solvus line, that means if I go above this temperature, then all the copper will go into solution, okay. So, this is my alpha phase in which all the copper will go, and if I quench it from that temperature, or if suppose if I do a slow cooling from that temperature and come to a temperature, let us say this is my room temperature, okay, then I will get a precipitate, okay, which is copper aluminum 2 precipitate, which is the equilibrium phase in this case, okay, and that precipitate, we call that precipitate as theta phase. Theta phase copper aluminum 2 will precipitate out, okay, because copper cannot be more than given by this phase diagram. So, the extra copper has to come out, and that will come out in form of another phase which is going to be your aluminum copper aluminum 2 or L2Cu, okay, and it has to come out from that in that form, okay. And we have seen that in heterogeneous nucleation that grain boundaries are the preferred site for any transformation. So, all this because we are doing a very slow cooling in this case, all the precipitate will form on the grain boundary of aluminum, okay, matrix. So, if the precipitate forms on the grain boundary, it is not good for mechanical properties, okay, as we saw in case of cementite also in steel. If it is forming on the prior alpha austenite grain boundaries and forming a network, it is not a good thing for mechanical properties. And when this precipitate form on grain boundary, they leave a precipitate free zone around that, where there is not going to be any precipitate. So, that is also not good for mechanical properties and other corrosion properties also. Okay, so this type of microstructure we don't want. So we want precipitates, but precipitate we want to have such that this precipitate should form within the grain, okay, not at the grain boundary. And that is what the whole heat treatment is about, that how to form this precipitate within the grain. So if you look at the sequence of precipitation, okay, it is something like this, that alpha naught is basically your single phase alpha, okay, where the copper is going into the solid solution. Okay. There is another, again the phase diagram is shown here, aluminum rich part of the aluminum copper system, okay, and you can see that there are some solid lines are there and some dashed lines are there. And if you remember, I told you that in phase diagram we only plot the equilibrium phase boundaries, okay, and any non-equilibrium phases have to be shown by dashed line. So you actually get lot of non-equilibrium or metastable phases also, which are shown here as dashed line. So you have one boundary for GP zones, another boundary for theta double prime, then theta prime, and then the equilibrium phase theta. So these GP zones are called Gwinner-Preston zone, okay, which form in the alloy during precipitation. We are not going into all those details how this form and so on, because it will be again a big topic. Okay, you just take it from me that while doing precipitation reaction, okay, what we want is the sequence of precipitation should be such that the solid solution should dissociate into a phase alpha 1 plus GP zones, which are Gwinner-Preston zones, okay. Then it should be another combination of phases should be there, okay. Next sequence it is alpha 2 plus theta double prime, then alpha 3 plus theta prime, and alpha 4 plus theta, okay. And we do not want the direct transformation of alpha solid solution of alpha into alpha, that is the alpha phase plus the equilibrium precipitate. This we do not want. So we want to have a sequence like this, okay. Now to get a sequence like this, okay, what we will do is, first we will do after solutionizing. So first will be your solutionizing operation. So we will be heating at any temperature above the solver's line, and let us say maybe some 20-30 degrees Celsius above the solver's line. So for aluminum 4 copper, maybe we will be heating it up to around, let us say 525 degrees Celsius or so. Okay. From after solutionizing we will do the quenching operation. Okay. Why we are doing quenching? That we want to retain all the copper which is in the solution in that form only. So basically if you do the quenching, you will get the super saturated solution, okay, super saturated solution of copper in aluminum, okay, that is what you will get. After quenching we will do some operations which are called aging process, okay, and during aging you will get all these intermediate phases, okay, which will come out of the solution, but we are doing it in a very controlled way so that you do not form this, okay, you will get these in sequence, okay. And why you get these in sequence? Because the transition phases, though these are not equilibrium phases, but why we get these phases is because the activation barrier for formation of these intermediate phases is low, okay, and because I am doing the aging process at a much lower temperature than the solutionizing temperature, I need to have a very small activation barrier, okay. So if you have alpha naught forming into alpha 1 plus GP zone, or alpha 1 plus GP is forming into alpha 2 plus theta double prime, and so on, for each of this process the activation barrier is very small. So it is like that I am covering the same path in very tiny steps, which I can easily do. For example, if you have to climb something, if I make steps of very large height, okay, it will be very difficult for you to climb each of these steps, okay, it will require a lot of effort from your side. But if I divide the same height into small steps, okay, it is very convenient for us to climb, okay. So that is what we are doing here, that we are dividing the whole precipitation into tiny steps, okay, instead of one huge step, okay, which is basically alpha naught transforming into directly into the equilibrium phase theta, okay. Why we do not want that? Because it has a complex crystal structure, and because of that you have high interfacial energy and it is incompatible with the matrix, okay. So it is not going to form within the grain when you do one single operation. It is always going to form on the grain boundary where it can accommodate, or where it can minimize the formation of a new phase by destroying the grain boundaries. So the destruction of the grain boundary actually provides the driving force for formation of this theta precipitate on the grain boundary. So if you take this huge step which has a very large activation barrier, you need a site which can provide that activation energy to you, okay, and that is where you use grain boundary for precipitation. So we do not want this to happen, okay. So that is why we do quenching, and then we take these tiny steps to form the precipitate within the grain. So all this process we are doing is so that we can have precipitate within the grain. So you want precipitate within grain, okay. So what are the steps involved? As I told you, taking all copper into solution above solvers line around 550 degrees Celsius, we will do the solutionizing, okay. Then we will do quenching from 550 degrees Celsius to room temperature to get supersaturated solution of copper in aluminum and to retain excess vacancies, okay. Please remember again this word, when we were discussing heterogeneous nucleation, we said that these are heterogeneous nucleation sites, okay. Why we are having excess vacancies? If you remember again that we said vacancies are the thermodynamically equilibrium defects, okay. So at higher temperature you will have more vacancy in the system, at lower temperature you will have less vacancies in the system, at 0 Kelvin you will have no vacancy in the system, okay. So as you increase temperature from 0 Kelvin, as a function of temperature, the vacancy concentration increases exponentially, okay. So there is an exponential dependence of vacancy concentration on temperature. So temperature may increase linearly, but the vacancies will be increasing exponentially, okay. So at high temperature you will be having more vacancies, at low temperature you have less vacancies. So when you quench the material from high temperature, you are not giving enough time for these vacancies to go into equilibrium concentration, okay. For example, at room temperature 25 degrees Celsius, whatever is the vacancy concentration should be there from thermodynamics, we are not giving enough time for vacancies to be destroyed, okay, so that it can become it can come to a concentration which is given by the equilibrium concentration at 25 degrees Celsius. So basically you are retaining these excess vacancies. Now these excess vacancies kind of come together and form a vacancy cluster, okay. And in this vacancy, so you can understand these vacancies will be, because we are doing quenching, okay, we are at room temperature, they cannot diffuse to longer distance, they can only diffuse to some nanometer distances. So they form very small clusters, large number of clusters at very close distances. So maybe 5-10 vacancies will come, form a cluster, another 5-10 vacancy come, form cluster, and so on. And in this vacancy clusters, your solute atom, the copper atom, which is in supersaturated condition, it does not want to be in the alpha phase, it want to come out. So it sees those vacancy clusters there, okay, and this copper atom go and will sit in those vacancy clusters, okay. So now you can see that you have large number of location where this copper solute atom is going and sitting, okay. And these small clusters of copper are called GP zone, okay, Gwinner-Preston zone, given proposed by these two scientists, okay, and on their name these are known, okay. So this small so how it starts? It starts with vacancy clusters. So this excess vacancies will form this vacancy clusters. In this vacancy cluster, your solute atom will go and sit. Okay, so these will be small solute rich zones, and these solute atom rich zones are called GP zones. Okay. So excess vacancies are very important in this. So one is supersaturated solution, so that you have more copper inside the solution which should not be there, and then you have vacancy cluster. So this copper atom will come and sit in these vacancy clusters. Okay. So this is what is the formation of GP zone. Now we want to go to the next stage, and for that we do aging process. What is aging? Keeping supersaturated solution at different temperatures in order to precipitate out the excess copper in form of fine coherent precipitates. Okay. So basically these GP zones are formed now. Okay. Now this we will take to a high temperature. Okay. So at high temperature, okay, so aging will involve the formation of GP zone also. So first step will be the formation of GP zone, and from this GP zone you will form other coherent precipitate. Coherent we have not discussed till now. Okay. Let me explain it to you just like that when you have two phases, okay, you are going to have an interface between them. Okay. If this interface is such that the atom across the interface are having a very nice matching, then we will call it as a coherent interface. Okay. So we will be forming this fine coherent precipitates by doing aging. Now the aging also can be of two types. One is natural aging, which can be done at room temperature. So after quenching, you just keep it at room temperature for sufficient amount of time, then you will have all this precipitate forming. So you will have natural aging. If you are not doing it at temperature of room temperature, but doing at any temperature above room temperature, then it is called because it is done now artificially. So it is artificial aging and temperature above room temperature. Okay. So these are the steps involved, and because of these steps, okay, this is how the hardness of the material will be changing. Okay, hardness variation as a function of aging time. So initially it will be GP zone fine coherent precipitate which will be forming, and because of that the hardness or the strength of the material will be increasing. After some time the coarse semi coherent or coherent incoherent precipitate will be forming, and then again the hardness will come down. So this is called the peak aged condition, where you get the maximum hardness. If you do any aging below this, then it is called under aged condition. If you do any aging above this, it is called over aged condition. Okay. These are the actual experimental curves plotted for different copper percentage. So you can see as the copper percentage is increasing, my response to aging process is improving. So initially this is the formation of GP zone. Okay. As I told you, during the aging process, aging is done at this temperature 130 degrees Celsius. Then these dashed curves are for theta double prime precipitates. Okay. Then the dotted one for the theta prime precipitate. So after formation of theta prime precipitate, actually the hardness started coming down. Okay. And you can also look at the aging time. Okay, it is around 10 days here, 100 days here. So you reach the peak aged condition maybe at around, let us say 60 after 60 days. Okay, for which is for industrial application is not a feasible solution. So if you are doing it 130 degrees Celsius, but if I do the same aging at 190 degrees Celsius for example, so after solutionizing quenching, after quenching you take it to 190 degrees Celsius. Now you can see that I am able to achieve the peak aged condition in, let us say, less than 1 day. maybe in like 22 hours, 23 hours or so. Okay. But the problem is now my peak hardness is somewhere around 100. Okay. Whereas in this case the peak edge value was around more than 130. So I have reduced the time for peak edging condition, but my hardness or the peak hardness which I am going to achieve is now lower. Okay. Another thing you can notice here that there is no formation of GP zone now. Directly I am forming the theta double prime precipitate. I am not telling you what do we mean by theta double prime, theta prime precipitate and so on. Just take it from me that these are some precipitate which there are steps involved and these precipitate form within the grain. Okay. And these are coherent precipitate. Coherent precipitate means they have a coherent interface. So this precipitate is, as you can see, that the precipitate is Al2Cu, okay, and the matrix is alpha aluminium. Okay. So now when you have a precipitate like this, okay, it is going to have some interface between the two. Okay. So when the coherent interface is there, okay, so suppose this is the atomic arrangement here for Al2Cu. The same atomic arrangement, I will not call it as Al2Cu, let us say there is some copper rich region, because Al2Cu is your equilibrium precipitate. In that case you will not get this coherent interface. Okay, so let us say some copper rich region is there. So this is the atomic arrangement in the copper rich region. It can be copper rich region or it can be theta double prime precipitate and so on. And these are the arrangement of aluminum atoms. Let me show it with some other color. Okay, so this is the atomic arrangement in the aluminum rich region. So if it is a coherent precipitate, then the interface between the two will be coherent. You can see that the atomic arrangement is continuous across the interface. Okay. That means whatever unit cells will be there or what is the lattice arrangement here is continuous. Okay. If it is not a coherent interface, it can be very complicated interfaces also. Just for explanation, I can show you another arrangement. Now this is the arrangement for maybe let us say copper rich region, okay, and for aluminum rich region let us say the arrangement is something like this, but in aluminum side let us say the arrangement is something like this. Now you can see that there is no continuous arrangement. If I see the arrangement here, okay, there is some kind of mismatch is there. Okay, so now it is not a coherent interface, it will try to be an incoherent interface. In fact, it is going to take care of this misfit by maybe introducing one dislocation here. Okay, so if it is introducing a dislocation here, then it is called a semi-coherent interface. So this is coherent, this is semi-coherent, and in incoherent, in fact, you cannot have any relationship between the two. Okay, so just for understanding sake, I am telling you about this, that you can have different type of interfaces with different type of precipitates. So that is what you can see the effect of that on the mechanical properties here. Okay. So a smart guy, what he will try to do is that you can see that at 190 you are getting peak hardness at much lower time, but the maximum hardness is low here. Okay. So what you can try to do is you can combine the two aging processes. Okay. What you will do is you start with 130. Okay, so that you have large number of GP zones, okay, and you try to have maximum number of GP zone forming, okay, and then you go to 190 degrees Celsius to speed up the process. Okay, so this can be called as two-step aging treatment. So initially you want to have more GP zone formation, so 130 degrees Celsius, then you go to 190. So this type of smart thinking is what makes this heat treatment processes very popular and important. Okay. Now, for the heat treatment designation for aluminum alloys, if we want to discuss, okay, these are the different designations. Okay. So, in industry, or if you want to go in market and want to buy some aluminum alloys, okay, that guy will simply ask you that what do you want, which alloy. Okay. So, you have to tell which alloy you are interested in. Okay, aluminum this, aluminum that, aluminum magnesium alloy, or aluminum copper zinc alloy, or aluminum magnesium zinc alloy, or aluminum silicon alloy. That also have designations, okay, that we will discuss later on. Okay, right now we are interested in heat treatment. Similarly, there will be designation for heat treatment, that in what form you want. So, if it is written as F, then it is as fabricated, either it can be casted or hot worked or cold worked. So, in whatever condition it is fabricated, that is what you want. O is for annealed, that means after doing fabrication, this is the lowest strength alloy which you can get for a particular composition, but highest ductility, temper is available. So, after fabrication you can ask him to, I want it in fully annealed condition. So, that designation will be O. Another designation H can be there, which is called strain hardened. Again, when we will discuss mechanical property, you will understand what do we mean by this term. Used for products that have been strengthened by strain hardening or by deformation basically. Or W, which is solution heat treated. Okay. So, if I say W, then you know that it has to be solution heat treated, that is it. If I say O, you understand that it has to be fully annealed, and that is it. Okay. Now, there is a large number of designation for aging treatment. Okay. So, after solution heat treatment, if I am also want to do an aging treatment, okay, so I go to market, I ask him, no, I just do not want solution heat treated, it should be aged also, and this is denoted by T. So, after solution heat treatment, if any aging treatment is done, then it will be referred by T, and T has a lot of subsections here. So, T1 is cooled from an elevated temperature and naturally aged. So, if you have naturally aged condition, okay, just keeping at room temperature, then you have to say I want a T1 alloy. If you want a cold worked and naturally aged, you have to say T2. Okay. If you want cold worked and naturally solution heat treated, cold worked and naturally aged, then T3, solution heat treated and naturally aged, T4. See, in this elevated temperature only we are saying, in this case we are saying it has to be solution heat treated, that means all copper should go into solution and then you are doing natural aging. T5 is cooled from an elevated temperature, then artificially aged. T6 is solution heat treated, then artificially aged. T7 solution heat treated, then over aged. Okay, T7 condition is the over aged condition. T8 is the cold work, then artificially aged. T9 artificially aged, then cold worked. T10 cooled from an elevated temperature, shaping process, cold work, then artificially aged. So, there are different temper designations are there. Okay. So, when you go to market, he will ask you which type of alloy you want. Okay. So, you have to specify, okay, I want this kind of alloy for whatever application you are going to use it for. Okay. So, with that I thank you. This is a different type of system, aluminum copper system, where the heat treatment is of different type, which is called precipitation heat treatment. Okay, little bit different than what we discussed during when we were discussing about steels. Okay, thank you.